Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for your time, for being with us this evening. How can you estimate the diplomatic and economic relations with Macedonia?
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to your program, which I think does really a great job by conveying to the general public essential ideas and messages concerning the European Union integration of your country. I want to greet you and to greet your watchers who now are in front of the TVs. And coming back to your question, of course, in my position as an ambassador, as any other ambassador, we follow very closely all the developments in your country. Now, to be more specific, please, which was the...
I said about the economic aspect, maybe, of the relations, some maybe investments.
In the bilateral, yes, I understand. In the bilateral field, you mean economic relationship. Well, this is a very good news, I have to tell you. Last year, the bilateral economic exchanges reached around 300 million euros. Comparing with some other economic partners of your country, maybe it's not such a high number, such a high figure, but comparing to economic exchanges in the region, from our side, it is the most significant one. So it is a positive trend, it is an encouraging trend, and as you already saw in relationship with Bulgaria, in relationship with Greece, in relationship with some other EU partners, as far as the reform process would advance, also economic opportunities would come more and more numerous.
Romania took the presidency of the European Union this year. What the priorities will be?
Indeed, that on the 1st of January, Romania took the presidency of EU Council, so the Council of European Union. I know you are very familiar with the complex architecture of European Union, but maybe for the general public it is worth to mention that in the EU Council, in the Council of European Union, actually the president, which now happens to be Romania for the next 6 months, is not acting like a leader or like a ruler. Is more acting like a broker, is acting like a facilitator in order to accommodate the position of different governments in European Union on the certain files EU has on its agenda. And these files are followed according to ministerial lines. So, the Ministry of Justice of Romania, during the presidency, is coordinating certain files concerning justice field in the EU. Health sector, Ministry of Health of Romania is managing for the benefit of the EU member states government certain files of interest for the whole EU. The same in environment protection, the same in
all areas.
Yes, in all areas. Important. So it's more like governmental work coordination between different member states government on issues of common interest.
You mean more technical, not that political role you wanna have?
Any file has a political stake in the EU. For example, energy is a strategic issue. But when you are in the position of a president and acting as an honest broker, then you try to smooth every corner, to try to smooth any line in order to find the common ground between the member states for a positive decision.
So from this kind of perspective, you're going to have a lot of work because the period will be turbulent and really interesting politically. We have Brexit, we have European elections.
Yes,
exactly in
Yes.
your presidency. Is Romania prepared for this delicacy of the job?
Well, this is a complex issue, a question. Actually, I see three questions in one. First, in order to give you a perspective, I would tell that during our presidency, 1,700 events would be organized in Bucharest or in Brussels or in different other towns of Romania concerning activities related to this presidency. So you can see how intense the work is and how huge the task and the responsibility. And on 9th of May this year in Sibiu, the summit would take place on the future of Europe. So that would be on the future of European Union. So that would be a really significant event, which is characteristic for any presidency. But for in our case, it would be the theme of the future of Europe. And of course, the candidate countries, including yours, are part of this future, and they are really, really interested to sit at the table with the others when the debate would take place. Now, the second part of your question, if Romania is prepared, yes, it is. Any ministry performing actually is preparing itself during the years for a task.
For these 6 months.
Yes. And let us not forget that we have the exercise of inner mechanisms inside EU. So, and beside this, a presidency is not coming out of the blue. Its mandate is designed according to priorities for those 6 months. It is designed according to common ground documents already existent. It is a complex mechanism in which you continue and you undertake from the former presidencies, as we did with Bulgaria and Austria, and you hand over to the future presidencies,
the next one,
as it would be the case with Finland and Croatia. What is specific for Romania is that we are the third in line with a very positive approach and a very strong interest and a very keen attention to the Western Balkans in terms of foreign action service and in terms of enlargement. And it is no secret, in this respect we continue agenda EU Western Balkans adopted in Sofia last year. And our Prime Minister, our different ministers already expressed their openness and commitment to support and to further the effort for the enlargement with Western Balkan countries. Having in mind that this year in June, the European Council would have to take a very important decision for opening the negotiations with your country.
So Macedonia can be one example of success during the presidency of Romania. Having in mind the Prespa agreement as the key, it was some kind of condition for starting negotiation with the EU. How do you estimate the agreement itself and the significance of the agreement for the region, for Macedonia and for Europe as well?
You know, I have a question in my turn right now.
Please.
why wasn't this agreement put in force some time ago? I didn't see very much new elements in it. If you would read some drafts from 10 years ago,
probably political willingness and the readiness of the leaders from both sides.
Well, in this case, let me say that by empowering this agreement, this PRESPA agreement, your country not only used a very rare opportunity, which I'm not sure would come
Again,
back in
soon.
in the next 20 years, as it was not the case in the last 20 years, but also set a model for the region. We know that the Western Balkans and the Southeastern Europe, in a broader picture, are areas with a historical burden, which now is very much addressed during the Berlin process. These are areas with complex relationship between different neighbors. And if I would go back to the Romanian example, we also had to go through this exercise of normalizing relationship with our neighbors. So,
can you be more specific?
Of course, broadening your perspective, you would see that actually any new member state of EU has to go through this exercise.
To make some kind of, to sacrifice something?
No, it's not about sacrificing, because, what means sacrifice actually? If I'm going to the etymological sense, means to make something sacred.
To learn something, maybe it's better.
Yes, but to lose or to get something, maybe you want to ask, but to lose what? Let me give you an example now. There was much rumor in the press about a certain correction of the border between Kosovo and Serbia.
Yes.
Some of the European leaders advanced the idea that this may trigger a spillover in the region, an avalanche effect. Let's think that your PRESPA agreement would not be in force. So your advancement to NATO and to EU wouldn't be possible. How would you protect against such a spillover, against such an avalanche effect?
So you mean that also we have to have in mind the moment, political,
you have the moment,
geopolitical moment,
you have in mind
forget
the
about
moment,
it.
the geopolitical moment, but you also have to have in mind the perspective, the future, because if your country would be maintained in the previous status quo and being blocked from advancing toward NATO and EU, realize that in the same time, neighboring country would continue their advancement.
And to grow and to go forward.
And then a difference, then a gap would be created. And
you think it's dangerous?
We think about Western Balkans also according to our program documents in terms of stability and security. If you have countries which are left behind, there is a potential risk.
And it affects the other countries as well. It's like a...
It can, because here in the Southeastern Europe, all the neighbors are so much linked to each other.
we can say that Prespa agreement is developing in a very good direction, because now somehow...
the gates. It opened the
Yes,
gates. And again, if you look to the example of any new member state, it had to pass through a similar process. So it is what we inherited from the past, but it is also the way we carry it with us in the future.
The future, which is more important.
Yes.
But it's not only the agreement.
The future is what we have to live. The past, okay.
It's done. It's not only the agreement, the unique condition we have in our path towards the European Union. We also have to do reforms in many different areas. Their public administration, security services, and so on. How do you see the progress in these areas? And do you think that maybe somehow they've been left behind, and the energy, the focus was so on the foreign policy? Because that's how the citizens react.
Earliest in April and latest in May, after the Europarlamentarian elections, European Commission would come forward with the country report. So it's not to me to assess now the level of progress or the implementation of the Plan 18, actually, because this is what you refer to. What I know was that indeed solving foreign affairs issue, mainly with some neighbors of your country, took a very intensive and lengthy diplomatic effort, which engaged the government at full. But I also know that recently Mr. Prime Minister Zoran Zaev set as the next stage of the reform program
will be focused at home.
A stronger focus on domestic reform, and I paid a very close attention to his speech yesterday on the occasion of the rising of NATO flag in front of the government building, and all these priorities of domestic reforms were in that speech, and he used very resolute words concerning this reform. So I am confident.
So you cannot estimate the level of progress in these reform areas, but you can ask maybe for the end, you can share the experience of Romania and how important the integration of Romania into the EU was for the Romanian society, and what were the biggest changes that happened?
At the moment of our integration to EU, I was already a diplomat, and I was in a mission abroad in that time. But coming home, what I experienced was a significant increase in the quality of life. Because by the chapters of negotiations, and it would be very detailed negotiations of any chapter, actually. So by opening and by negotiating each chapter, actually the whole society would change in Macedonia, or Northern Macedonia from today, or the North Macedonia, in the more precise terms. So the whole society of your country would change for better, actually. The issue, the question mark is a certain society prepared to absorb all these changes and to transform? And
political elites, because
also
they will
political
also be
elites,
affected.
but again, the whole society would be affected. In our case, I felt it for the better, to have better functioning public services, to have a more professional public administration, to have merit-based and merit-oriented access to different institutions, to have a business environment clean and really boosted by a proficient public administration, a clear relationship in terms of open market and free of corruption. These are benefits for everybody, and they come. It is unavoidable. Again, my question mark is, the society is ready to accept these changes, is ready to support them, and is ready to adapt to these changes.
It will be a challenge.
It will be a challenge.
Thank you very much for your time.
I thank you for the invitation once again. Thank you very much.